The flight to Nassau was the most peaceful 3 hours of my life in decades. As I sipped champagne in first class, I watched the clouds drift by and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete freedom. No phone calls asking for money. No guilt about not being available to babysit. No walking on eggshells around people who were supposed to love me. When I landed in Nassau, the warm Caribbean air hit my face like a gentle embrace. The property management company had sent a driver to pick me up. As we drove through the island's beautiful streets, I felt like I was seeing the world with new eyes. "Here we are, Mrs. Grace," the driver said as we pulled up to a stunning 3-story building overlooking the crystal-clear ocean. "Welcome to Paradise Cove." My breath caught in my throat. The property was even more beautiful than the photos I had seen online. The balcony had a perfect view of the turquoise waters, and palm trees swayed gently in the ocean breeze. This had been mine for 4 years, and I never even knew how beautiful it was. Mrs. Rodriguez, the property manager, was waiting for me with a warm smile and the keys. "Mrs. Grace, we're so happy you finally decided to visit your property. The rental income has been steady, but we're excited to show you some improvement plans that could increase the value significantly." As she gave me a tour of the 3-bedroom condo, I learned that the rental income had been generating $3,500 per month for the past 4 years. Money I never touched, money that just kept accumulating while I lived modestly on my Social Security check and secretly funded my ungrateful family's lifestyle. "The previous tenants moved out last month," Mrs. Rodriguez explained, "so the timing is perfect if you want to live here yourself." "I think I do," I said, standing on the balcony and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I think this is exactly what I need." That first night in Nassau, I slept better than I had in years. No worrying about whether Danielle would call asking for money. No anxiety about being needed or not needed. Just the sound of ocean waves and the feeling of being exactly where I belonged. Meanwhile, back home, chaos was beginning to unfold. It was Thursday morning when Danielle tried to pay for groceries and her card was declined. She tried again, thinking it was a mistake, but the cashier shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this card has insufficient funds." Danielle felt her face burn with embarrassment as she put half the groceries back. That evening, she called the bank to complain about their error. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm looking at your account history," the bank representative said. "It appears that the automatic $500 monthly deposit was canceled on Tuesday by the account holder, Mrs. Grace Williams." "Canceled?" Danielle's voice cracked. "That's impossible. My mother wouldn't. There must be some mistake." "No mistake, ma'am. Mrs. Williams also closed the joint savings account that same day." Danielle hung up the phone with shaking hands. For the first time, it occurred to her that maybe her mother's absence wasn't just one of her dramatic moods. She tried calling me, but my phone went straight to voicemail. "Mom, please call me back. There seems to be some confusion with the bank accounts. I'm sure we can sort this out." When Michael came home from work, he found Danielle pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "We have a problem," she announced. "My mother has lost her mind. She canceled all the money transfers." Michael's face went pale. That $500 per month had become essential to their budget. Without it, they'd struggle to make the mortgage payment. "Maybe she's just having one of her episodes," Michael said, trying to sound calm. "You know how she gets dramatic when she feels ignored. Let's go talk to her tomorrow." But when they arrived at my house on Friday morning, they found something that made their blood run cold. The house was dark, my car was gone, and there was a note taped to the front door. "Key is under the flower pot. Letters are on the coffee table." Danielle's hands trembled as she unlocked the door. The house felt different, empty in a way that had nothing to do with my physical absence. It felt final. On the coffee table, 2 elegant envelopes waited for them. Danielle's name was written in my careful handwriting on one, Michael's name on the other. As they read the letters, The color drained from both their faces. "She can't be serious," Michael muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Nassau," Danielle whispered. "What property in Nassau? Since when does my mother own property in Nassau?" They ransacked my house, looking for clues, for bank statements, for anything that would help them understand what had happened. In my bedroom dresser, they found the empty wooden box where I had kept my important documents. "She planned this," Danielle said, her voice barely audible. "She actually planned this whole thing." Michael was looking at some papers they'd found in my desk drawer, old investment statements I'd apparently forgotten about. His face had gone completely white. "Danielle," he said slowly, "look at this." The investment statement was from 2 years ago, but it showed a balance that made both of them sit down hard on my bed. $127,000? Danielle whispered. "My mother has $127,000 in investments?" "Had," Michael corrected grimly. "Look at the date on this statement. Who knows how much she has now, or where it is?" For the first time in years, they started to do the math on everything I had given them. The wedding money, the house down payment, the monthly transfers, the emergency funds, the repairs, the gifts, the constant financial help they had taken for granted. "Oh God," Danielle whispered. "We've been living off her for years, and we treated her like a burden," Michael finished quietly. That weekend was a nightmare for them. They tried calling me dozens of times, but my phone was off. They called hospitals, thinking maybe I'd had an accident. They even called the police, but was told that a 74-year-old woman leaving town wasn't a missing person case unless there were signs of foul play. On Sunday morning, exactly 1 week after the Mother's Day humiliation, Danielle made a discovery that made everything even worse. She was going through my mail, hoping to find some clue about where I'd gone, when she found a letter from a law office. "Changes to last will and testament," she read aloud. "Final copy enclosed." When she saw the new will, she collapsed into my favorite armchair and wept like she hadn't wept since she was a child. Everything was gone. The house she'd grown up in, the life insurance money she'd been counting on for her children's college funds, the savings she'd assumed would be there for her family's future. All of it was now designated for the Sunshine Foundation for Abandoned Seniors. The only provision for her children was a trust they could access at 25, and only if they maintained genuine, loving contact with their grandmother. "She can't do this," Danielle sobbed. "She's my mother. That's my inheritance." But Michael was reading the will more carefully. "Actually, she can do this. And according to this, she already has." Meanwhile, I was settling into my new life in paradise. I had registered with a local doctor, opened a Bahamian bank account, and even made friends with my neighbors. Mrs. Chun, a retired teacher who lived in the unit next to mine, had invited me for morning walks on the beach. "You have such a peaceful energy," she told me one morning as we watched the sunrise. "You must have lived a very fulfilling life." I smiled and didn't correct her. I was learning that fulfillment wasn't about the life you'd lived, it was about the life you chose to live moving forward. But peace never lasts forever. On my 10th day in Nassau, I was having breakfast on my balcony when Mrs. Rodriguez called with unexpected news. "Mrs. Grace, I hope I'm not disturbing you, but something unusual has happened. We've received several phone calls from people claiming to be your family members. They're asking for your contact information and seem quite persistent." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. What kind of questions are they asking? They want to know if you really own the property, how long you've owned it, what it's worth, that sort of thing. The young woman claimed to be your daughter and said there was a family emergency. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anger. "Mrs. Rodriguez, under no circumstances are you to give my family any information about my property or my whereabouts. If they call again, please tell them you can't discuss private matters with unauthorized persons." "Of course, Mrs. Grace. Is everything all right?" "Everything is perfect," I said firmly, "and I intend to keep it that way." But as I hung up the phone, I realized my peaceful new life was about to be interrupted. They had found me, or at least they had found out about my property. And knowing Danielle and Michael, they wouldn't give up easily. That afternoon, my phone finally had service again after I'd gotten a local plan set up. Immediately, it started buzzing with voicemails and text messages. Dozens of them. The first few voicemails were apologetic. "Mom, please come home. We need to talk." But as the days had passed, the tone had changed. "Mom, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear like this. We're family." And finally, the latest ones were desperate and angry. "Mom, we know you're in Nassau. We know about the property. You can't hide forever. We're coming to find you." I sat on my beautiful balcony, watching the sun set over the Caribbean Sea, and realized that my story was far from over. I had left home to escape my family's exploitation, but they weren't going to let go of their golden goose without a fight. As I went to bed that night, I made a decision that would change everything. If they wanted to find me, fine. Let them come. But they were about to discover that the old, submissive Grace was gone forever. The woman they would find in Nassau was someone entirely different. Someone who had learned her worth. Someone who was no longer afraid of being alone. Someone who was ready for war. The next morning, I woke up to find a message that made my blood run cold. "Mom, Michael and I are flying to Nassau tomorrow. We've booked a hotel near Paradise Cove. We need to talk. Whether you want to see us or not, we're coming. Danielle." I stared at the message for a long moment, then walked out to my balcony. The morning sun was painting the ocean gold, and I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt excited. Let them come. They had no idea what they were about to face. But neither did I.